Welcome to Fantasy Audiobook. My Hero Academia. Virtual Extract. Chapter 11 Shoto Todoroki. There was a brief silence all around. Even if Yue was right in front of him, no one paid attention. Brisand Mac realized that this was an embarrassing question, and coughed a few times and quickly said, "Ahaha, Sheena seems to be very confident, this is a good thing, very good. Yue is right in front of you, everyone. Let's go." The students got off the bus one after another, and then began to discuss Etsuha's remarks in surprise. After Etsuha also left, Brisand Mike's mouth twitched. This guy really doesn't know how to speak according to the occasion. Speaking of which, Shoto Todoroki is also a ruthless character, he can't face such a person. Lost. It's really arrogant enough. Before he came, he had seen Shoto Todoroki's quirk, a horrible guy with half of his body covered in ice. Just by looking at the ice ball on his body, he could understand how powerful the opponent's quirk was. Not necessarily. Aizawa Shota suddenly said, "This guy is a bit strange." At the other end, Etsuha has already followed the others into UA. It is basically the same as the majestic heroes shown in the animation. Upon entering the school gate, you can see quite majestic buildings at first glance. During the period, you can also notice the appearance of countless special cameras with a sense of science and technology. The entire heroine gives a sense of city. Wow! As expected of UA. The exclamation of some students sounded around. Compared with their junior high school, UA showed a perfect crushing posture in all aspects. Be quiet. Aizawa Shota and Brisand Mike also walked from behind and said lightly, "If you pass the admission test, this place will become your school sooner or later. Besides, our main purpose today is not to bring you to visit UA, and to cheer up, ready to watch the first screening match." Everyone immediately tensed, and followed Aizawa Shota to the faraway admissions recommendation examination office. Soon, a huge arena appeared in front of Etsuha's eyes, surrounded by trapezoidal auditoriums, enclosing the entire arena, and the atmosphere was a bit like watching an arena. "Is this the location of the sports festival?" someone exclaimed. Aizawa Shota glanced at him unexpectedly and nodded. "Yes, UA's sports festivals will be held here over the years. Similarly, because there is a natural arena, the screening competition will also be held here." Brisand Mike added in due course. "The screening match is about to begin, and all irrelevant personnel will go to the audience to sit down. Shoto Todoroki blows classmates, hurry up and get on stage to prepare." As Mike's voice fell, a boy with half of his body full of ice came out from the corner. He showed only half of his face, half of his hair was ice blue, and the other half was frozen. At first glance, it looked like half of the influence of quirk. "This is Shoto Todoroki, the son of number 2 hero's endeavor." Seeing his appearance, many people exclaimed, "What a powerful aura! Can quirk actually freeze half of his body? Strange guy. What a cold look." Etsuha is also looking slightly, and I have to say that Shoto Todoroki of this period is still in a state of hatred towards his father. Not only does he use ice to seal the fire part he hates, but even his eyes are filled with resentment. At first glance it does make people feel a little uncomfortable, no wonder it was misunderstood by Yellen and Asa. Speaking of, Etsuha also saw Yellen and Asa in the bus, but this guy is obviously in a state of entanglement. It is probably because he saw Shoto Todoroki that he planned to leave UA. "Boom classmate, your quirk." Brisand Mike saw Shoto Todoroki's half of his body, and was stunned for a moment. "It won't affect the battle." Shoto Todoroki's voice was cold. Not knowing if it was a coincidence, he actually added in the same tone as Etsuha, "I won't lose." As expected of a genius, even the habit of speaking is the same. Someone complained. "I always feel Shoto Todoroki's ability is a little weird. Just looking at him, I can feel a bitter chill. This guy is so fierce than Etsuha. Ah, really confident to speak." Brisand Mike smiled awkwardly again, and then said, "Next, please come in, Sheena Etsuha, Sheena classmates." Etsuha, who had been prepared for a long time, stepped onto the ring, without any quirk showing on him, which was in stark contrast to Shoto Todoroki. "I'm your referee, the cement division." A teacher with a square body soon appeared beside him. "My quirk is cement. I can manipulate the concrete in contact. If your fight goes too far, I will stop it. Plus, The recovery girl is always in the health room, so you can rest assured to fight. The rules of this competition are very simple. Falling out of the ring, coma or unable to move, and conceding defeat will all be sentenced to lose. There is only one chance, no exceptions. Atsuha glanced at the ice cube on Shoto Todoroki's body, and frowned. Will it affect your actions? Half of Shoto Todoroki's eyes showed a penetrating red light. He shook his head and said, "It should be enough for you." Atsuha raised his eyebrows and he felt that Shoto Todoroki was not malicious, but the meaning of this sentence was too obvious. Should I say that he didn't put himself in his eyes? Or is it afraid that too much power will hurt yourself? Thinking of this, he smiled slightly. I hope so. The cement division said at the right moment, the game has begun. Chapter 12 Official Duel. Absolute Ice Rolling. The moment the cement division announced the start of the game, Shoto Todoroki's wrist flipped first, and a large amount of ice was lifted from the ground like a wave, covering the entire arena in the blink of an eye. Boom. Countless people can only see that the world in front of them suddenly becomes transparent. A lot of cold air is coming out, countless ice layers one after another, overlapping into ice layers tens of meters high. The range is extremely exaggerated, but one face, Atsuha, is submerged. Isn't it so perverted? Is this the strength of the descendants of no two heroes? The terrible quirk. Judging from the performance of this ice layer, his quirk seems to be stronger than Shina. Exclamations kept appearing. Shoto Todoroki's quirk was too powerful, it was shocking. Only a few teachers watched the situation in the middle of the ice intently, and each of them was extremely serious and seemed to be expecting something. Even Shoto Todoroki looked at him solemnly at this time. Bang! His ice layer suddenly shattered, and then, a huge icicle rose from the ground, spreading to a height of hundreds of meters in an instant, and standing at the top of the ice layer was Shina Atsuha. What kind of monster is this? Seeing Atsuha directly condense a 100-meter-high icicle, Mike's chin in charge of the commentary was almost shocked. Is this guy's quirk so powerful? How is this possible? Shoto Todoroki's pupils contracted, and before he could react, he saw countless powerful ice blades suddenly spread on the icicle, and instantly broke through to Shoto Todoroki's side, which quickly made people look at it. I didn't know the range of the attack, but I heard a puff. Shoto Todoroki's frozen body was directly hit by the ice. Puff. Shoto Todoroki's body flew upside down like a broken kite. He hurriedly manipulated the ice layer to cushion himself. His body was smashed into the thick ice slag, and the ice on half of his body was shattered. No, we must fight back. Shoto Todoroki gave a violent cough, and the impact just now caused a lot of damage inside his body. Even so, Shoto Todoroki wanted to fight back. At this moment, he suddenly saw an extremely large shadow forming under his feet. While surprised, Shoto Todoroki raised his head, but was stunned to find that a solid ice ball with a diameter of nearly several tens of meters was forming in front of Atsuha's eyes. Fuck, what is this guy's quirk? Isn't it too powerful? How did that hockey puck come into being? It weighs at least a few tons, right? It will kill you if you drop it. Even Aizawa Shota can't help but exclaim when he sees this scene, is this guy's quirk so powerful? At the same time, the ice ball in midair suddenly loosened, and several tons of objects fell like a meteorite. Is he going to kill me? Shoto Todoroki's heart was pounding and he felt a huge threat at this moment. He used all his strength to condense an ice slide and escaped from the attack range of the ice hockey. At the same time, he turned around and raised his hand for a stroke. A 10-meter-high wall of hard ice lay in front of you. Here comes the ice hockey. At this moment, the boss of Cement Division's eyes stared, for fear that Shoto Todoroki would be killed by accident. Aizawa Shota's heart was mentioned in his throat, and as long as there was a slight change, he would tie the Shoto Todoroki out with a bandage. At this moment of silence, the hockey puck was smashed down. Boom. The center of the ring seemed to be hit by a missile, and the center suddenly shattered for most of it. The ice strength in front of Shoto Todoroki's eyes was even more like paper. The moment it was hit by the ice hockey, it was directly destroyed by the shock wave. Damn it. Shoto Todoroki had to keep building an ice wall, and it took him a few seconds to relieve himself from the shock wave. Looking at it again, there was only a smashed ring in front of his eyes. What a powerful force. Shoto Todoroki's gaze was a little sluggish. On the quirk manipulating the ice, he was defeated. The boy in front of him was able to perfectly shape the ice into any shape he wanted, and the firm ice layer was kneaded like mud in his hands. And Shoto Todoroki can make a lot of ice at best, nothing more. Do you want to terminate the game? The cement division wiped the cold sweat on his head. He felt a great pressure just now. Fortunately, Etsuha's ice hockey didn't take the initiative to hit Shoto Todoroki, otherwise it would be too mysterious to use his cement to resist it. A carelessness can cause casualties. When the students around saw this scene, their eyes were almost shocked. What a joke. Before they saw Etsuha as plain and plain, they thought his quirk was not very strong. But the facts are in front of them, everyone just feels that the world is about to collapse. At the same age, why are others so strong? This is definitely a professional hero's level. Termination. Aizawa Shota didn't want to look anymore, and was about to respond to the cement division with a communicator, when a person suddenly appeared beside him. Continue playing. Surprisingly Endeavor. Chapter 13 Full Form Shoto Todoroki. Endeavor, why are you here? It's not compliant. Aizawa Shota was startled by the sudden appearance of heroes. The man in front of him was tall, with flames burning all over his body, giving people an extremely hot feeling. Obviously Heroes Endeavor ranked number 2. I submitted an application to the principal. Endeavor showed Aizawa Shota the certificate, and then said lightly, "Don't mention this, I want to continue the competition. This is a battle of crushing level. I don't think it is necessary at all." Aizawa Shota frowned. What's more, even the teacher can't save Shoto Todoroki 100% in this fight. Endeavor shook his head and said, Shoto Todoroki only used half of his power, and the other half was useless. Aizawa Shota did not continue the dispute, but said, if an accident is caused, the school will not be held responsible. It doesn't matter. Andre looked at Shoto Todoroki on the ring indifferently. This is the strongest quirk owner he has created and the work used to defeat All Might. How could he be defeated so easily? Ellipsis. The ring also changed. After a series of attacks, Etsuha did not attack again. Instead, he manipulated the icicle to land in front of Shoto Todoroki. If you just use half of the quirk, you can't beat me. Ah, I know. Shoto Todoroki showed a stubborn look, obviously not wanting to use the flame part of the quirk. Don't you want to use all the quirk even if you lose? The hatred is still so deep. Seeing his appearance, Etsuha shook his head regretfully, and with a flick of his wrist, an ice sword condensed from his hand. Have you used a sword? Aizawa Shota's eyes flashed astonishment, but soon saw Etsuha's heart rate rise and fall, and he couldn't help but suddenly, no wonder he uses a sword. It seems that a powerful quirk is also a burden on his physical strength. Continuous use is exaggerated. After he became able, his physical strength gradually couldn't keep up. I have to say that Aizawa Shota's vision is indeed old and sharp, and he quickly sees Etsuha's weakness, but he does not know that this is just caused by Etsuha deliberately testing himself. Finally, there was an opportunity to release quirk publicly. How could he easily let it go? This time I said it was a battle, but it was actually just Etsuha to test his limits. Call. Shoto Todoroki's eyes flashed inadvertently and relaxed. He didn't expect that Etsuha would actually use melee weapons to fight. Didn't you know that the specialty of the ice system is to control and consume? Thinking of this, he raised his hand and shot a string of ice thorns. Wow! Layers of ice thorns continued to spread to Etsuha's body. In the face of this attack, Etsuha jumped, and his hands burst into light again. Ice cavalry. Bang bang bang. Several cavalry formed of ice instantly occupied Shoto Todoroki's surroundings. Under Etsuha's command, the cavalry charged at the same time, and several ice spears pierced Shoto Todoroki's body at the same time. How could he create this kind of creature with ice? Shoto Todoroki was astonished again, evading the attack of the soldiers and cavalry with an embarrassing roll, then kicked his legs suddenly, and suddenly came to Etsuha's body. Do you think those soldiers and cavalry will be stronger than me? Etsuha looked at Shoto Todoroki and said helplessly, my swordsmanship is the biggest threat. What? Shoto Todoroki was shocked. The next moment he saw Etsuha rushing forward with a sword. Without any fancy skills, just a stab, Shoto Todoroki felt as if his whole body was within the opponent's attack range. No matter how he avoided it, he would be slashed. In the middle. How does it feel? Shoto Todoroki was covered in cold sweat and hurriedly manipulated the ice layer to attack Etsuha, but Etsuha's movements were even faster. A layer of firm ice crystals instantly formed behind his feet, and he pushed him forward with a huge force, and the whole person came to Shoto Todoroki. In front of, a sword slashed down. When the blade cut through the ice layer that was condensed by Shoto Todoroki in an emergency, and a bloody flower bloomed on Shoto Todoroki's shoulder. Is it over? Shoto Todoroki gritted his teeth. The ice force was suppressed in all directions by the opponent, which made him feel like he couldn't use it. Is this the so-called inferior substitution? I even deny my own ability. What qualifications do such people have to be heroes? One came from before him. Shoto Todoroki was surprised. He raised his head and saw that Etsuha's eyes were looking at him in disgust, and he couldn't help but angrily said, "You fellow, what do you know?" Etsuha curled his lips. It seems that you hate your ability. Do you hate your parents? Haha, what a idiot. You will live as an accessory to others, and dare not even resist. It must be very tiring to live. Why don't you use your own quirk to override him? Shoto Todoroki woke up suddenly. Yes, because the flame is that guy's quirk, so I hate it and don't use it. If this is the case, wouldn't I default to that guy's accessory? No, not so. He looked at Etsuha with a wry smile and said, I didn't expect to meet someone like you, and it would force me to use all my strength. Half of Shoto Todoroki's body suddenly burst into flames. The hot temperature melted the surrounding ice and snow into water vapor, and the huge flame spread directly to the audience. Chapter 14 Freeze All. The other half of Shoto Todoroki's quirk broke out, and everyone was amazed again, especially when they saw the surrounding ice and snow were melting. They were even more envious. Semi-cold and half-burning, is this his quirk? It can actually blend the two mutually restraining quirks, fire and ice, perfectly together. On the pure ice quirk, Shoto Todoroki obviously failed, but his flame seems to be the nemesis of ice. Is it possible to fight back? So powerful quirk. Even Endeavor's eyes flashed with satisfaction. His expectations for Shoto Todoroki were very high. If he couldn't solve a little guy who emerged from nowhere, it would be too cheap. The current situation is more in line with his expectations. In the arena, Shoto Todoroki's flames swept the audience. The high temperature continued to melt the ice, and countless water vapor rose up. In less than a moment, a fog was formed, covering a lot of sight. This situation should have an absolute advantage for me. High temperature and water vapor can greatly inhibit the formation of ice, and his physical strength seems to consume a lot. Shoto Todoroki panted heavily and looked around with some solemnity. This is his chance. The combination of ice and fire allows him to easily produce a large amount of water vapor. In this case, Shoto Todoroki can completely hide his whereabouts by relying on the mist to consume Shina Etsuha. Thinking of this, Shoto Todoroki decisively warmed up the surroundings. Because of the huge hockey puck that Etsuha hit before, the ice ballast here is almost endless, but for a while, the entire arena is covered by steam, and the figures of the two people are completely gone. Good strategy. Aizawa Shota saw Shoto Todoroki's change, and some compliments flashed in his eyes. In this case, the role of ice is simply difficult to manifest, whether it is low temperature or icicles will be easily offset by the flame. On the contrary, Shoto Todoroki's flame does not need to directly hit the target. It only needs to spread around to have a great impact on Etsuha. It can be said that with this move, Shoto Todoroki completely reversed the situation and changed from a lower position to a quirk restraint. Is this the convenience brought by dual attributes? It's really enviable, he murmured. But at this moment, part of the mist suddenly dissipated. Aizawa Shota's pupils shrank, and he immediately saw that around the dissipated mist, Etsuha's figure suddenly appeared, and a bright blue light began to bloom on his body. What does this guy want to do? There was a question in his mind, and at the same time, a large amount of ice spread on the soles of Etsuha's feet, and then it covered the audience like an ocean. Frozen all for me. Wow. Extreme cold suddenly broke out from around him, and the water vapor turned into white snowflakes in an instant, and fell to the ground. Fully exposed. Shoto Todoroki lowered his head and stared at his lower body in amazement. There was a block of ice that condensed in an instant, even his flame could not burn through. I caught you. Etsuha appeared behind Shoto Todoroki, with an ice sword on his neck at no time. I surrender. Seeing the condensed ice sword again, Shoto Todoroki simply surrendered. Two people are not on the same level at all. He even faintly realized that Etsuha didn't regard himself as an opponent at all, but felt like experimenting with quirk at will. What a strange guy. Shoto Todoroki was helpless, but there was not much sadness of losing. Ah, Shina Etsuha wins. The cement division wiped the ice ball off his head, and said with a bit of embarrassment. As a referee, Yue's teacher, he was actually frozen by the quirk just now. Had it not been for his quick response, I am afraid he could not act now. Shina Etsuha. I remember the name, it's definitely a problem boy. Cement division thought secretly. There are others who have the same feelings as him. Aizawa Shota looked at his feet. A thick layer of ice did not know when it had stuck to the soles of his shoes. What the hell is this quirk? Aizawa Shota didn't know what to say for a while. He really didn't expect that Etsuha's frozen range just now was so huge, and even the entire range of onlookers was affected. Not to mention him, the students who were onlookers shivered with cold. It was only because they were too far away from Etsuha. And a little closer, especially Shoto Todoroki and Cement Division, half of their bodies turned into ice sculptures at this time. This kid. Endeavor's expression moved slightly, and he also looked down at his feet. Like Aizawa Shota, that layer of ice directly froze his shoes, even his own quirk did not offset it. Is this the ultimate ice? Just now I even thought he could freeze the whole world. A wave of waves appeared in Endeavor's heart, and he looked at Etsuha again. His eyes had become completely different. Shina Etsuha. Interesting little guy. Ellipsis. Chapter 15 Unlimited Race. It's over. It's over. Are two guys who hadn't been on UA fighting just now. UA is really a gathering place for monsters. I was really freezing to death just now. Even though it's so far away, there is a feeling of being in the winter. We can feel such a big impact here. It is hard to imagine what attack Shoto Todoroki was in the center. I actually sympathize with him a little bit, and I will actually fight this kind of perversion. When the cement department announced the results of the competition, the students felt like they were awakened from a dream, and they continued to discuss the attack by Etsuha just now. And Yaoyorozu Momo even used quirk to create a layer of quilt for himself, which was not frostbitten by the aftermath just now. No one could have imagined that Etsuha, who looked friendly before, is no different from a monster once he fights. Students, be quiet. Present Mike promptly stopped the conversation. The first screening match has been completed, and we will proceed to the next round of assessment. As for the elimination, you can continue to visit with the others. Everyone's test content is not allowed to be leaked to the outside world. Is this the next round of testing? Etsuha moved his body and wiped the sweat from his head. Taigu places great demands on the user's energy. Etsuha has completely extracted Acids' abilities, but his body is still his own. He has not been able to release quirk arbitrarily before. He doesn't know his limits, but this time he and Shoto Todoroki's duel made him understand his upper limit of physical strength. But this is not a big problem, at least it has no effect on the next test. According to Etsuha's memory, the so-called entrance examinations are just some basic abilities and physical fitness tests, such as running. Shina. Shoto Todoroki suddenly stopped Etsuha. What's the matter? Etsuha looked back at him. Is that your full effort? Shoto Todoroki asked the doubt in his heart. No. Etsuha replied honestly. Shoto Todoroki's heart trembled fiercely. Even though he had expected this answer a long time ago, he didn't expect Etsuha to answer so simply. So it's like this. He nodded, pondered for a while, and then said, I really hope to be classmates with you. Really? Etsuha was a little surprised. Then I am waiting for you in Class A. The two smiled at each other. Back in the middle of the crowd, Etsuha was immediately surrounded by countless people. One of the very upright people hit the ground and bowed to Etsuha. Etsuha classmate, I am Yarin Inasa, please advise. This action was so exaggerated that everyone around was startled, and Etsuha's eyelids also twitched. This is Shina Etsuha, please advise, Yi Lan, don't you hurt. Ah, this is already a habit. Yi Lan Inazuo said with a smirk, touching his head. It turned out to be like this. Etsuha was full of emotion. Yelin Inasa looked innocent, but Quirk was able to manipulate the wind, and I must say that he was a very strange person. During the conversation, Aizawa Shota came to Etsuha's side and asked, Shina, you have just had a screening match. According to the rules, you can take a break and then take a test. Do you want to take a break? No, my condition is fine. Atsuha shook his head and refused. Really, there will be no compensation if you lose. Aizawa Shoda reminded. I don't want to delay too much time. Atsuha refused again. Aizawa Shoda did not continue to remind, but a hint of cunning flashed in her dry eyes. UA's quirk assessment is not a mere destruction, it involves all aspects, not to mention that there are many things that ice quirk can't do. However, Aizawa Shoda didn't remind Etsuha what he meant, and it would be nice to let this kid deflate. Thinking of this, the corners of his mouth curled up, but it was only a moment, and soon returned to 10,000 years constant facial paralysis, and his depressed and decadent voice echoed in the crowd, everyone is with me come. Soon, everyone came to a long run, and saw the confused expression of the classmates behind him. Aizawa Shoda said lightly, the first stage of the assessment, the 800-meter race, the last 5 were directly classified as failing. The students were surprised. Racing. Isn't UA the school to train heroes? Why is there such a competition system? Running. On the contrary, some students showed their thoughts after hearing Aizawa Shoda's words. Among them, Yaoyorozu Momo quickly recovered and said to himself, do you want to use quirk for a race? There are a few good seedlings. Aizawa Shoda looked at Yaoyorozu Momo and others, with some cares in his heart, and then said in a deep voice, don't underestimate running. If you become heroes, support is an essential part of your life. The faster the speed of support, the more lives you can save, and the race this time is unlimited. That is to say, you can use your quirk in the race at will, as long as you are not eliminated, all means are available. Use. Only then did a group of people show a dazed look. Aizawa Shoda continued. Next, the person whose name I can pronounce will enter and run to prepare. Yi Lan Inasa. Yaoyorozu Momo. Quote ellipsis quote. Shina Atsuha. Thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe.